Hello and welcome to Growing Tech Fast, the condensed Org3D podcast, where we talk about growing tech startups with those who have grown them. Today, I'm joined by Thomas Walle, who is the co-founder and CEO of a rapidly growing location intelligence startup, Unicast. Thomas, it's a pleasure to have you on the pod today. How are you doing?
Pretty good, Ben. I've been looking forward to this podcast, so thanks a lot for having me.
For the benefit of our listeners, Thomas, perhaps you could kick things off by telling us a bit about your background, who you are, and the work that you're doing at the moment.
Yeah, so I can kind of give you a little introduction to Unicast, which is we are a location data and intelligence company. So basically, we try to understand how people move around on the planet, where people shop and dine and travel and commute and live and work, and then we build very sophisticated data sets that we sell to data scientists and researchers and analysts across multiple industries to help them make better decisions and to build better products.
Fantastic. Amazing. That's a great overview. And in terms of kind of startups, which is obviously a key focus of this pod, I wanted to get things started talking about that journey you've been on so far. I'm aware from previous conversations that your first foray into that space was actually with the music streaming service Tidal. And before that, you were with PwC, obviously a very large organization. So can you talk me through that initial journey from a large top 4 consultancy firm through to the creation and growth of a tech startup where you are now?
Yeah, no, so it's actually kind of it is a journey to your point, because from very young age, I was very determined to start my own company once. I always been doing a lot of small businesses when I was a kid and a teenager, but I want to make sure that I can do this in the right way. And I went to Copenhagen Business School together with my co-founder KJ, which I started Unicast with, and we also worked together at Tidal. But I was very determined that I wanted to understand how businesses were built and how they were constructed. And I believe that the best way to get that is by joining one of the big four consultancies. Really kind of just an amazing school to be at PwC, learning how businesses are run across auditing, across consulting, across financial transactions. And strangely enough, I use so much of the stuff I learned at PwC on a day-to-day basis here now at Unicast. So I think it was a better school than my education in terms of understanding how businesses are run. And that kind of set me up kind of for my next path of my journey, where I was very fortunate together with KJ to be a part of the founding team at Tidal, the music streaming service. So really kind of building that music streaming service from the early days, negotiating with the record labels, trying to figure out who to distribute the music streaming service through. We launched it in 10, 12 countries until Jay-Z and Beyonce decided to acquire the company back in 2014.
Yeah, fantastic, perfect. It's a great start to the startup life. It's actually fairly rare that the first kind of foray into that world goes so successfully. So that's refreshing to hear. In terms of Unicast, then, where did the initial sort of idea and inspiration for that come from? And can you tell me a little bit about how you actually make that jump from having an idea into creating a business based on it?
Right. So here's the strange thing, Ben, is that there's actually a connection between Unicast and music. Because when we were at Tidal, as you can imagine, we knew every single song that people listened to. So we made recommendations and we made playlists and so on. But we really want to figure out, where do people go to concerts? Because if you went and saw, like, you seem like a Beyonce kind of person, if you went and saw her on a Sunday, we want to recommend you Beyonce music Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And back in 2014, 2015, to our surprise, no one had this kind of knowledge. Like, no one really knew what people were doing in the physical world. And we said, well, if a streaming service out of the Nordics need this data to build great products and to make better decisions, there must be multiple other companies and multiple other verticals in need for the same. And that was the start of building Unicast as a human mobility data company, where yeah, our goal is to understand how people move around on the planet and then provide these data sets and these insights to multiple companies across multiple verticals.
Wow, yeah, fantastic. I wouldn't have drawn that comparison, but yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I think that's the key thing about a company like that is so many different businesses can benefit from understanding how people move around. It's a pretty general thing, but yeah, it's a hard thing to work out. So certainly something of value. And from that initial kind of, I guess, sort of turning it into a business to where you are now, I'm aware that you've actually been recognized as the #1 company to work for in New York City for 2 years running, which is an incredible achievement. What factors are behind that, and what is your kind of motivation behind actually striving to achieve that in the first place?
Yeah, and I'm very kind of happy with getting such recognition, especially knowing that we moved to New York early days without any products, any tech, any clients, and any funding at all. We just had to figure out a way how to make it work in the largest market for our data sets. But keep in mind that I'm from Norway. My co-founder is from Norway. We started a company out of Norway, and I think one of those key attributes that has made us pretty successful in the US is that we always build Unicast based on what we call Nordic values. And what does that actually mean? And there's kind of a few things there that we have incorporated or imported from the Norwegian culture, and this goes very much around some of our core values. Norway is a society with a very flat hierarchy. So we have one of our core values at Unicast is be your own CEO. What does that actually mean? Well, it means that I believe that we as a company will move much, much faster and achieve greater things if everybody thinks as they are the owner of their business. So we are going to be slowed down, and I saw this very early. If every single decision had to go through me or through the management team, I much rather want everybody to make a lot of decisions, make them fast, and also fail. That happens because that will allow us to learn. So putting a lot of this ownership out to each and every team member has been a great way of us really moving fast and make sure that there's ownership and there's this kind of CEO feeling of everybody in the company. And then the other part is around transparency. So Norway is a very transparent society. As an example, all salaries are publicly available. And this is something that's pretty crazy from a US perspective, but you can go on to the database run by the government and you can search up my name and you can see how much I make and how much I have in wealth, which means that we are very used to sharing. We are very used to being transparent. And when you work at a company, you have good days, you have bad days, you have challenges, you have amazing wins. But unless you share all that very transparently, it's going to be hard for the company to really understand where we are heading and where they can contribute. So we always had a strong focus on trust through transparency, where we share a lot. We make sure that communication is as seamless and flawless between Oslo and New York, and that the people really have a good understanding of what kind of company we are building and what the biggest challenge we're trying to tackle is. And I think those are kind of the two things that I think are some of the reasons why we've been awarded these amazing rewards the last couple of years.
Yeah, that's fantastic. It's it's really interesting actually. I wasn't aware of that salary fact in the Nordic culture. Yeah. Certainly would make my job a whole lot easier if I could Google everyone's salaries. Right. Something that I'm interested to get your perspective on is that a lot of companies claim to have a great culture and have kind of slogans and buzzwords, and then it kind of falls short or it's not actually implemented. So you've obviously done a great job of actually enacting on the kind of mission that you articulate. How do you actually build a culture like that from day one? And for instance, a new starter who's coming in, how are they immersed in that from the second they kind of interact with Unicast?
So it's of course a very evolutionary process in terms of how to build a culture and how you make sure you can keep it. But I can share one story which I think is very telling, and it was a very good learning from us or for us, because that's when companies get founded, right? You always want to like define your culture, and you find some values that are important to you. We did this very wrong the first time. And I think this is common for a lot of startups, because you try to figure out what are the values that you want to be like, right? So you kind of look with a binocular, like trying to figure out what kind of company do I want to become. So we of course did that, and we put a lot of fancy buzzwords on the PowerPoint, on T-shirts, etc. But it didn't really stick, right? It wasn't us. It was just fancy buzzwords. I think this is a trap a lot of companies, again, including ourselves, went into. So we kind of realized, you know what, we need to do this again. And this time, rather than looking with binoculars, we used a mirror. So we kind of looked at who are we? Like, what are the reasons why we have come so far? Like, what is it that makes us successful? And that was so much easier to define. So we actually looked inside the organization, inside the teams, and we defined these three things that we believed were some traits of our culture. And those are the ones that we have stuck to ever since. And I think that's kind of one of those aha moments when you realize, well, you know what, you can't really build a culture based on external factors and what you want to become. You really have to kind of look internally and see what have gotten you there, and then enforce that, and then strengthen that further. So we are continuously, and we are on a daily, weekly basis, like talking about these values as often as we can, because we're seeing that it is reinforcing the actions we're doing as a company.
Yeah, well, that's a very insightful answer. I think the analogy of a mirror versus a set of binoculars is something that people will certainly take away
right
from this podcast, actually. Something that you did touch on a couple of minutes earlier was the fact that you founded the company out of Norway and then kind of made that journey over to New York and really kind of started to build something and grow something there. What kind of challenges have you had expanding into the US, learning that market, and what kind of advice would you give someone who maybe wanted to do something similar with their business?
Yeah, and here's the funny part, Ben. I can't recall any of the discussions we had, either with my wife or my co-founder, about moving to the States. Like literally, it's just blank. We were just there suddenly. And I think that's kind of something that kind of entrepreneurs, this naivety, which is amazing to have, because it allows you to do things that might not be that sound at that point. But first of all, I'm always giving advice to other startups that, hey, if you're building a company, just go for the biggest market. It's so much more fun. You're more likely to succeed by going where most of your clients are, by going where most of the investors are. I believe that regardless of what kind of company you start, if you're 2 people or 50 people or 1,000 people, you're going to spend just as much time on that company. So why not go to the market where there's more zeros in every Excel cell? So I think that's the first thing. Like, really happy that we made a decision moving to the US, to the biggest market. And there's been a lot of challenges on that way, and I think we can probably kind of do another podcast about those specific challenges. But one thing that were a bit unclear to us is we weren't ready, we weren't prepared for how different the US working culture is compared to the Nordic ones. And I think that might be if we were to go to the UK as well, because on the outside, Norway and the US looked very similar, right? Both kind of democratic countries, technically savvy, but the working culture is very, 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 very different. And there's so many nuances that has taken us time to really understand. And like one example, which I think for early stage companies raising capital, right, is you very rarely get a no in the US. At least that's my experience. Investors don't tell you a blank no. They tell you, sounds good, we're interested, send us the deck. Same thing, if you try to sell, it's very rarely a no, we don't want this. It's let's keep in touch, maybe another time. And while Nordic culture, and I've been doing a lot of business both in Finland and Sweden and Denmark, is much more kind of firm. It's like, nope, this is not the right timing. So that was kind of one of the things that I really had to learn. And I'm not saying that one is better than the other. I just had to become much better at reading investors, reading clients when they were actually interested, or when they were just giving me a polite rejection.
Wow, that's really interesting. Yeah, you must have a favorite though. If you must have a favorite between those two. Is there an ideal? I would think that maybe a clear no is just like, well, at least you know not to carry on following up there, though. No, right?
Right, kind of. That's what you kind of get in the Nordic culture. You kind of get a no firmer. But that's also what I really appreciate doing business in the US is that, and this sounds cliche, but this American dream that everybody can do everything, it actually exists. And I think that is so important when you're trying to build a very challenging company, that you need people that are cheering you along the way. You need people that believe that you can make this happen, because you're going to have some rough days, you're going to have rough months, you're going to have rough quarters, you're even going to have a rough year. And it's tough to work through those challenging times. But that's what I love about doing business in the US, is that everybody wants you to succeed. Everybody. So you just get this inspiration and this fuel along the way from clients, from competitors, from investors. And that's one of the things I really appreciate about doing business in the US, is that everybody is cheering you to do the right things and to build a great company.
Okay, yeah, perfect. And on the subject of building a great company, another kind of recognition that you've had recently was by Inc. 5000 as one of America's fast-growing companies. Now, I'm interested in this because you sometimes see those companies where they were founded 30 years ago and they're 20 people and they're really happy with that. So what are the benefits of growing so quickly in your eyes, and why is it actually such a priority for you?
Well, first of all, I think kind of a recognition like that, it's a testament that we're doing something right. It's a testament to all the hard work that the team has put in, because it's tough to grow fast, right? It's a lot of chaos. It's a lot of uncertainty. And I think this is what we are seeing, that when we hire and bring people onto Unicast, you really need to be able to tackle those, all that chaos. And that's why going back to the BO and CO value is important. If you see something that isn't working, if you things could be done differently, you just do it. So it's a great recognition. But at the end of the day, it is a recognition. What we care about is how can we build great data products that allow our clients to be successful. I think that's what really fuels us more. Hearing how companies are able to, for instance, do site selection, like where to open up a new store better. Or during COVID, right, we helped a lot of hospitals to understand capacity planning, based on social distancing, how many people will get infected, how that impact the local healthcare system. We help a lot of universities and researchers do research on mobility patterns and urban environment. Those are the real things that at the end matter. The recognition is just kind of something that goes because we have done some really exciting and good stuff.
Yeah, perfect. Fantastic. And when you are sort of hiring so aggressively across your entire business, sales, marketing, engineering, you've mentioned that the kind of uniform culture you have across that business, but are there any kind of uniform skills or characteristics that you look for in new hires coming into Unicast, regardless of the actual role that they're going to be doing?
Yeah, there's a few characteristics that we have seen have yielded success. Like if you start at the Unicast, I think one of the first one is around intellectual capacity. And what I mean by that, I don't mean your IQ. I don't mean how smart you are, but I mean that how curious are you? Like how willing are you to like dig deep into a certain problem? Either that might be the client's problem or challenge, or it might be something that we're struggling on figuring out internally, or you really want to put yourself in your colleague's shoes to help him or her solve a challenge. That's one of those key attributes that I very much appreciate and we always looking for. Second is humble. Norwegians, we are humble by heart. We're doing great things, but we can always be better. We can always do something in a different way. We can always learn more. There's always people that know more than myself about any given topic. So having that humbleness to be willing to expand your intellectual capacity, I think that's a key trait as well.
Yeah, okay, fantastic. Perfect. Well, I just wanted to spend a couple of minutes on the kind of space that you're in at the moment as well with kind of geospatial location intelligence. I know that in some ways it's quite a new space, certainly in the kind of niche that you're operating in. What I wanted to know is kind of, it can be sold, your particular data sets, to so many different use cases, whether that's retail, marketing, technology, real estate, investment, pretty much any vertical, right? So for a product that has such a wide range of different use cases and value propositions, what kind of questions do you actually need to ask of your customers to understand how Unicast can best serve their business?
Yeah, and this is kind of a question we like really trying to address now a lot internally, because you're right, location is a pretty nascent industry, like rapidly growing, and the whole COVID just exploded awareness around location data. But we typically see two types of buyers: either the GIS specialists that really know location data well, they know exactly what they are looking for. But then we see so many other companies that are understanding how location data can help them make better decisions. And this is what really gives those amazing wow moments. So one of the things that we continuously train our sales team and the commercial team in is to like understand the underlying challenge, like what are they trying to solve? Because at the end of the day, there's so many different data sets that can help answer and address that particular challenge. We want to make sure that the challenge that the client is having can be addressed by one of the many data sets around location data that we can provide them. So that might be around site selection, right? Hey, you're a retailer looking to open up new stores. We can help you to understand what corner in New York City will you attract the most people. Or if you are a real estate developer and you're looking to invest in California or in Florida, with the recent migration patterns we've seen because of COVID, we can help you understand what markets are seeing uptick in population versus decrease in population. So it's all about kind of figuring out these use cases for them. But that's the challenging part of our business, because to your point, location can solve so much. We need to be focused, and then we need to expand our knowledge and the use cases that we can do year by year by year. And at least I find that a very joyful yet challenging journey to be a part of.
Yeah, fantastic. Perfect. Well, another great answer. I think you were getting to the end of our time here. So I just had one kind of final question, really. If you were to give one piece of advice to someone who might be in the data space or potentially the software space, who wants to get into the kind of geospatial industry and the location intelligence space, what would your kind of advice be for that person undertaking that new challenge?
Yeah, I think there's in every data industry, the quality of the data matters a lot. Because keep in mind, other companies are making decisions or building products based on your data, based on your ingredients. So it means that you have to make sure either company that you start at, or if you're in a company that you're focusing on building quality data sets. The underlying ingredients has to be top notch. That's what I believe is going to be the winner in the end. It's the same thing as if you go to a restaurant. The best restaurants are the ones with the best raw ingredients. We are the one providing those raw ingredients to other companies. We have the best tomato, the most ripest, sweetest, tastiest tomato. Like that's why customers will buy from us. So we are extremely focused on building high quality data sets. When we're seeing that more and more of the market, of our clients are now realizing the importance of that. And I think that's going to be the trend going forward.
Perfect. Yeah, another fantastic answer. Well, I feel after that one both inspired and hungry. So thank you for that. And thanks so much for your time today, Thomas. It's been such a pleasure speaking with you.
Likewise. This was awesome, Ben. Thank you so much for having me.
Fantastic. Well, for those at home, thank you so much for listening to Growing Tech Fast, and tune in next time.